help center our initiatives, are thinking about the group. So actually, you can get started. Just wanted to welcome folks back in.
Great. Yes, Happy New Year indeed. All right, ready to go. All right, so this is a reintroduction to Gemini, as it were. Some of this you guys will have seen before, but as Joel said, we want to kind of re-level the playing field, make sure we're all on the same page, do a little reflection of the year past, and kind of say who we are and what we're about. A lot of this stuff you can find on our website, which we're trying to improve and make it even more clear so that we have everyone knows what is Gemini, and that we find the website to be a really useful thing that you guys can share with people to validate, okay, what we're saying, this is who we are, but also to give us our collective vision as well. So these are what we say our goals are, and these are things that we really thought about and spent a lot of time considering and kind of framing these things of multidisciplinary research, problem-focused solutions, in other words, not answers to questions that don't exist, impactful science, knowledge generation and transfer, education is a big thing for us, and diverse networks. We've heard from people, and we've been reflecting, especially over the last year or two, that the relationships and the people that we have are the most important things. We are certainly a relational group rather than a transactional group. And there you see our mission, which I won't read for you, but everything that ties us together is around access to quality care and timely care, as well as education, so that we can, use data to create real solutions. We work all over the place. This map is always being updated, so let us know if we have any glaring omissions. But we have now partners in a little more than 20 countries, which is really cool. And some of these partnerships are more longstanding. Some of them are deeper than others, but they all serve as part of our network. You all know that Catherine, Joao, and I are the leaders of the group. We've been clarifying the roles of the three of us in the last couple of years, where we see Catherine as the head director of Gemini, Joao as the director of research, and myself as the director of operations. You see here our Duke faculty. Trying to see if I might have missed anybody since we've last updated this. But of course, these are only a small amount of the people that we work with around the world. And as you can see in this photo, if you know some of these faces, our most fruitful and robust collaborations are based in Brazil and in Tanzania. But as I said, we've got folks that we work with all over the world. We have Mia, Maria, and Paige working as project coordinators with our group. These are the folks who liaise between the PIs and the study staff and actually getting the projects done, in other words. And that's both for what we say pre-award or post-award, meaning grant writing, grant submissions, but also project management when things are on. A really, really important part of our team. I'm not sure where that yellow line came from. Here we are. I think somebody drew. Thank you. And then, of course, learners are a huge part. Like I said, education is critical. We have a couple of postdocs. We have the TREC program, which is a NIH-funded training program based in Tanzania, which trains master's and doctoral students. Many of you are here. Most of you know some of these people. We also have a lot of visiting scholars, folks doing the sandwich program and other things from Brazil and other far-flung places. And of course, we also have master's students based right here at Duke. And we couldn't do this work without these folks at all different levels. I'm gonna turn it over to Joao at this point, and he can bounce it back to me whenever he's ready.
Sure. A big change from last year to this year is that we spent some time thinking, reflecting, and putting to practice some of these reflections around our culture within the group. I think last year was a year that resonated, maybe the end of a growth phase that we had within our group, with an influx of funding together with an influx of people that brought us to the position where we are now. And I think that this year, the main mentality will be around stabilizing this growth, is sustaining this growth, and improving our culture, improving our work process. So a lot of discussion and a lot of time was spent building these initiatives last year. And we're coming up with these concepts of what our vision is for the group, and how this vision is going to be transferred into practices within the group in the coming year. So a few of the things that we've highlighted is that our vision is that GEMINI is a center that promotes continued learning. So everybody that comes into the group with the perspective that this is a learning space. It's a space where you are able to gain skills, gain knowledge, build your career, build your development. And that's done through a team mentality. So having a team-based approach, a team science approach, has always been the core of our group. And I believe that we want to continue that, and we want to emphasize that in a way that every project needs to be staffed by multiple people with multiple expertises, and building zones of trading knowledge. That's how we innovate, that's how we maintain quality, and that's how we maintain the group, okay? And then that is part of this vision, is to build this culture, a culture of continued learning, a culture of team mentality, but overall a culture within the group that fosters our ideas of equity and positive infrastructure, positive atmosphere. So in the way we've translated these three big pieces into some ideas, and we can see that on the slide, is that within the group, we always supported, and they're going to continue supporting growth, the center's growth, but also individual growth. So everybody that is here, we support and we push you to continue growing yourself, either in knowledge, either in degrees, or in relationships, but we support that growth. So if you want to pursue further career development goals, please work with us. We're happy to support you. If that is aligned with the group, better. If that is outside of the group and you're going to pursue other opportunities, we are going to support you. And we want to work as mentors to you as you build out your career. Where it's very clear that not everybody is going to grow their careers in a way that it aligns with the group. And that's for several reasons. Sometimes the group is not financially ready to support growth, and you need to pursue opportunities elsewhere. We want to support you on that. But we also believe that the group extends itself from the Duke infrastructure. So wherever your career is growing to, if it can grow in parallel, aligned with the group, we also want to support that. There are several examples of students that came here as PhD visitors and then continued their careers, and they're still aligned with the group, and the group supports their careers through partnerships, through funding, through relationships. We want to do that. And there's examples of people that came into the group and continued within the group infrastructure as well. That's also part of our growth. So that's a big part of our vision. The way we do that, and we really emphasize that we can provide you with mentorship structures. And mentorship here comes from a mentorship relationship, so that more developed, more further along in their careers, people within the group can mentor junior people within the group. That has always been our model. But we also emphasize a lot of peer mentorship, remembering that this is a team mentality. It means that everybody in the group have different expertises, experiences, and skills. And we really emphasize you building peer-to-peer relationships, because that's how you can also build long-standing collaborations and relationships. But the mentorship also happens. The mentorship here now has changed a little bit of how we were doing it years ago to how we do it today. Today, because of the group's growth, the more senior faculty with the group, that would be me, Catherine, Emily, we don't necessarily have the time to give everybody one-on-one mentorship in the same basis we were doing before. So it's very hard for us to do one-on-one mentorship, weekly meetings with every single one of the mentees in the network. So the way we've built the group to support this is by having a tiered mentorship structure, so that the more junior trainees can get mentorship from the more senior trainees, and then that scales up to get mentorship from the more senior faculty. So every trainee is going to work with peers and is going to work with a more senior trainee. So for instance, a PhD works with the master students, the PhD works with a postdoc, and this way we create relationships and mentorship patterns within the group with different levels of expertise and training. And then that tiers up to get feedback from the senior faculty. Does it mean that you're not going to have access to the senior faculty? No. It just means that you're not going to have as frequent access, because that's just not timely possible anymore. So the way we've been supporting this is that we ask the students to be on the meetings where the senior faculty will be. So we're always going to be at this meeting. We're going to try to do our best to be at the open houses, at the data science calls, or the project meetings. And you can get mentorship by engaging in those meetings, seeing how the discussions are done, seeing how the projects are developed, engaging on projects that you are leading and getting mentorship through that. And then requesting mentorship when you feel like it's time that you need some one-on-one discussions. So you can ask for a meeting when that time is needed for. You need a mentorship meeting, you have decisions you want to make, you can ask for that meeting. We're not going to be scheduling those meetings at a routine basis because they're just not working. But we're gonna schedule those meetings as they are needed, as they are as you feel like you need those meetings. But we also want to give you more presence through the project meetings as well. Okay, and of course, every mentorship you receive from a junior faculty, or every mentorship you receive from a more experienced trainee. So if you're a master's student, if you're a postdoc, or if you're a PhD and you're getting mentorship from a postdoc or from a junior faculty, all of those mentorships you're receiving, they also receive mentorship from the higher tier. So we are in constant contact with everybody in the group to provide support on how those relationships happen. You go back up.
Oh, sorry.
Now, the other part in the group vision that it's important is that we always strive to have a very flexible group. And the idea of having a very flexible group comes from the global mentality that this group has. We want to engage with people everywhere in the world. We want to offer opportunity, learn from, and build relationships with people from different institutions and really make Gemini a network and not necessarily a Duke housed center. So flexibility is very important. But at the same time, flexibility comes with the burden that it needs more autonomy and it needs people to keep up with the expectations that are given. So while we support a very flexible environment, people can work from remote locations when needed. We offer opportunity for people to get training in different places while continuing their working relationship. We also build positions within the group for folks that have other employments and other activities. That's always very welcomed. We want to make sure that the expectations that are created are also met. So a lot of issues we had last year that has been coming as the group grew were around communication. We're going to put in a lot of different structures and really values around communication so that we can improve our ability to meet expectations and stop creating communication problems and then, of course, expectation problems as well. There's two bullet points here that are very important. The first one is I want to make sure we emphasize it so people understand that we do strive for a low pressure environment. And I'm 100% sure you perceive these, or if you don't perceive this now, as you leave the group and you go work somewhere else or have experiences somewhere else, you will perceive this, that we strive not to put pressure on deadlines. We strive not to put pressure on people to work on a weekend or overnight, being respectful of holidays and time that people dedicate to projects. We respect that and we give, through flexibility, the ability for people to work at their own times in delivering things. But that needs to come with an idea that expectations and communications are going to happen. And while we strive for a low pressure, we also strive for a very respectful environment. And for that, we appreciate when people provide us feedback to improve processes that are not respectful, that need further training, need more structure. Overall, trying to create a positive environment. That is something we do strive for. And we're going to continue striving for this by improving our processes on how early on we start projects so that we're not doing things in the last minute, trying not to do grant submissions in the last minute so that it avoids this high pressure environment that is very natural to academics. And we do a lot of effort to try to keep it away from people. That's why we have these meetings. That's why we have all of this bureaucracy where we create structure, we create process to try to avoid the need for last minute, high pressure situations. And we do value autonomy over bureaucracy. We do avoid trying to put a bunch of rules and processes to follow and leave people with autonomy to build their own ways of trying to handle tasks. That has created some problems in the past, so we are going to put some bureaucracy, but we still want to value autonomy on people so that new suggestions, new ways to handle problems can come up. Overall, what we are striving for in all of this that I'm saying is this shared sense of ownership that while the group has leaders and we really own the development of the group exists for the group itself. I always like to mention this, that there are several different ways to pursue a career in research, especially in the United States. Most of these paths do not involve creating an infrastructure like we did. They usually create a very direct research line that is funded with one grant after the other, instead of trying to build it more horizontally like we do. We do this because we value equitable relationships And we want the group to be able to offer opportunities that are important for us here at Duke, but it also meets the needs and the desires of our colleagues and our network, so that it's a bi-directional relationship. And to do that, we need to broaden our group so that we can offer opportunities that are not always within the boundaries of the funding we receive. So to be very clear, we try to offer opportunities that are not always funded by the funding we have, by the projects we have. And to do that, we need the group to exist for the group. That's where the sense of ownership comes from. If it's not something that is directly linked to one of the projects, is important for the group, we're putting time to it, we're putting dedication to it to help it build. It only works if the group puts the dedication back to it. That is all part of building the culture around the group, that we want to keep it as a big value of us, okay? So if it's for the group is giving back. And I always say this in interviews and to new trainees, you're gonna get from the group what you put back in. It's the same across the network. You get what you give, and then it's a bi-directional relationship with the group in that way.
Joao, can I add something here that I think is important and leads into a lot of this?
Yes,
I think we also really value quality. Quality work for ultimately our patients, for our science. And that comes back to paying attention to detail and seeking input and seeking this team-based approach, because that allows us to bring together this amazing group with really expertise in so many different areas and make everything we do far more quality and better for the patients that we serve. And I think that is the underlying root of where you're getting at in terms of talking about these processes, because we've identified processes where we need to make sure that we bring together all of the minds that we have to give input into the thing that we're creating. And so we love when people make ownership over their activity, but please also remember that pull in those who have experience in this area, pull in others to be able to give you feedback. And really utilize the power of the group that's there. But I want to add another bullet point there, that's to be striving for high quality.
Great. Thanks, Catherine, for adding that. All right, we're going to move forward and switch gears a little bit to look at this past year, meaning the past fiscal year, and then a little bit of time that's passed in between, because we're now halfway through the fiscal year. So these are things that were current. I'm not going to go through all of these. These were things that were active in some way, even in no cost extensions during the previous fiscal year through the present. In gray, you'll see projects that were either ended during that period or were in no cost extension during that period. So you see these three that are in gray closed in 2024, which is, and then in blue here is one that's new, the Price project, which we're very excited, which is a bit of an extension of the PRACT project to look at regional implementation of an intervention in Tanzania. And noting that these are all NIH funded projects, and we've had a couple of things closed and only one open. So we're in a bit of a downturn, but it's very typical to have those seasons in this area. So we're very thankful we have this one coming on. We have a couple of others that we're very optimistic about, but we're going to keep it banging forward to make progress. I wanted to highlight some of the work from that past fiscal year. That this would be, just to clarify, from July of 2023 to June of 2024. During that period, we had, as a group, 18 NIH grant submissions, which is 50% more than we had the previous period. That's a lot more. So we know that showed to us that we can do an increased quantity. And 3 of those were funded, or we think are those ones that are about to be funded. That's the Price project I mentioned, the supplement for TREC, which is great because that's a program that's directly at KCMC. And then the PRAC supplement we are optimistic for. So that's a pretty decent hit rate for our NIH grant submissions. As a group, we also had 63 peer-reviewed publications come out. That's a pretty decent increase over the previous period as well. And there were 25 non-NIH grant submissions. So these are things like mainly Trent and DGHI kind of internal awards, which again, we've mentioned before, we want to be really intentional about those opportunities. And that's something that we are trying to improve our process on, and kind of thinking about, again, like Joel said, without creating needless bureaucracy, but using some tools to guide our decision-making in a way that's fair and intentional and is going to serve us in the future. So when we think about especially these grant submissions, but also NIH grant submissions, does this, for example, serve a line that we already have a history and some groundwork on? And or does it serve a future line? Some projects are kind of more one-offs where we don't really know is there a next step, or is this just the thing? So maybe those aren't the best directions to go. Considering things like our partner site priorities, if this is not a priority for the partner PI, we need to question why we're doing it. And other things such as the size of the award. How much can these grants support our staff and our faculty, our postdocs, to decide if they're kind of worthwhile? These smaller grants certainly serve a purpose, and we got a great deal of those funded in the last fiscal year. Please, Joel.
Yeah, so I wanted to put some context to what this slide means. So if you look at the structure of GEMINI today, we have maybe 5 active faculty with an additional 4 or 5 that are affiliated but are not really part of this core development. So this means that we're submitting 4 NIH grants per year per faculty, which is a lot if you think about the work. Now, that is not necessarily true because we have a K award faculty who is on a K award and so does not submit that many amount of grants because she thankfully doesn't need them. Will soon enough. Yeah. And we have junior faculty that are getting to that level and are submitting their K awards and supporting other submissions. But it means that if you look at this distribution, it's a much higher average of submissions that Catherine and I are doing, along with some submissions that other folks are doing that are tied to the center. We want to work smarter instead of harder in this sense. So we might see a reduction in the number of submissions from this year to the next because we are learning a lot. So in the past years, we wanted to increase the group, and increasing the group, not just on people, increase the group on volume of work, which we've done. You can see that. Now we want to make more strategic movements with the group based on everything we've learned in the past years. So we've had a lot of, we had a lot of experience and we learned a lot from this productivity in the past years. So this means we're going to probably do maybe less submission or keep the number of submissions, but make them smarter in areas that are more fundable, areas that are more targeted. But in the end, as we grow in our faculty group, we need to grow in our grant submissions, and that's going to happen almost naturally. But it needs to be a little bit more direct. That's where the non-NIH submissions come in. So you might receive a message saying, we're not going to go with this small grant we want to go because it's really a one-off and it's not linked to a large line. Let's make it on this direction, or let's consolidate the efforts we're working on now. But it is a large growth in the past years, and now it's going to be a more targeted growth as we move forward.
Thanks, Rob. These are current grants and other projects during that same period, which not NIH funds. This is only one part. I think there's a second set. So as I said, there's a lot of these smaller projects funded by DGHI, which has been critical in setting up kind of new partnerships, exploring things. Very, very helpful. There's one new one, which is going to be fantastic. And for the Amazon region in Brazil and South America, we have a lot of Trent projects as well, doing that same thing. This will be in the recording if you guys want to go back and look at these. If you have any questions, let us know. I'm going to turn it back over for a couple of these next slides. I don't think we go in detail on like this research thing because we're kind of running out of time and I want to open up if there's discussion. But if you want to speak to these next few slides.
Yeah, I'll just focus on this slide, and the next slides, I think we can skip them because they're just product narrative on growth.
Yeah.
So this slide is a summary of the targeted areas we've been working on, and this slide goes through constant reflection and changes based on where we're at. When you think about what our focus is, the three initial buckets there are the areas of what we're going to spend our time in trying to build during this year. So the first one is the area of outreach and partnerships. So this is really a goal. This is kind of the main target action that we build in our group. And you see what's listed there is build relationship with learners and partners at our global sites at our network. This is really what we do. We are planning our next trip to Tanzania for February, which will involve grant-related activity, but trainings that are not necessarily grant-related. And it's part of our support to the group locally, as much as the group from Tanzania is part of this meeting and supporting the activities on our group here at Duke as well. So we want to continue doing that. We want to know what the needs for the partners are and be able to meet those needs whenever it's possible with our Duke infrastructure, and then have, again, bidirectional relationships. The next bucket is the sustainability, which I think is going to be our main target this year. And here we have diversify and grow our funding streams. This continues to be a goal and is what we're going to strive for. So you'll see we're going to focus a lot of our attention into this part this year. And then the integration bucket talks about how we make this integration between Duke, regional partners, and global presence. And I think we really want to move from this idea that Gemini is a Duke group that has relationships with other groups and build Gemini as a global network that has presence in different places. So that's a mindset change that we're working on, and we're gonna inquiry several folks from the network to see how to make this in a sustainable way, in an equitable way, to build Gemini as a center, a global center that has different hubs everywhere, and Duke is one of them. Now, when you look at the areas that we have expertise in that we are good at, these are the three buckets in the middle. These are our main methodological areas of work that really guide our activities and intentional activities in the area of implementation science. This is where we hold a lot of our skills. We have several experts in this space in different areas, different methodological applications in this space, but it's really a core scientific area of Gemini. The second one is innovation through data science. This is a big component of Gemini as well. And there's really the interplay of implementation in data science has been our main source of innovation in the group. And then our Tied to the Health care part is really focusing on health system resiliency and health services research. A lot of the work that we do is how we broach health system resiliency, health services research through implementation and data science. Now, what binds all these three pieces together is having a strong community engagement platform, both for research, but also for translation of research to implementation and to policy. So we kind of need to work around building the community part in this slide as well. And those key scientific areas or methodological areas then translates to our targeted areas of research, which would be equitable access to quality of care, behavior change, minority population health, and climate change. If you look at this and then translate this back to our GEMINI spreadsheet of projects, you'll see how they overlap very well. That's really by design.
Thanks, Ron. So as we said, I don't want to make Catherine sad because we love the baobab tree metaphor for the project. But as Joao said, this is kind of I think this looks sort of like a family tree, in other words, what's the word, genealogy, like where we came from sort of thinking of like how do we get to what we're doing today is the way that I think of these things. And even we started with injury trauma stuff, but even getting into things that are not injury related, we're doing more and more of that. This is one that's specific to Tanzania, but as you know, we're doing things all over the world. So you can see that things are quite diverse. There's sort of a place for everyone pretty much, and all kinds of interests. There's a little bit about more of our projects going on in Brazil. Again, I'm not going to go too much into specific projects, but this is a really cool one. I did want to point out that we have our research project staff and various responsibilities that they have that you all should know about. So these are abbreviations for Paige, O'Leary, Leticia Morassi, Maria Mushi, and Mia Bono. Some of those responsibilities that they have in support of the infrastructure. So if you need something in one of these areas, you can refer to the person noted. If you refer to any of them, we will kind of triage internally and point you in the right direction. But this is the current thing that people are responsible for. That doesn't mean that these individuals will necessarily be doing every single item themselves. They may be asking you to help with some of these things, but these folks are responsible for making sure that these activities get done.
Can you pause there for a minute?
Please.
Now, this is very important to highlight the kind of activity that is not grant funded that we have to do to keep this group flowing the way it is. If you come to the meeting and the meeting happens and there's a lot going on, it feels like there's the group survives on its own. It does not. There's a lot of activity that happens in the background administratively. And that's what we need to strive to sustain throughout this year. So it goes back to making GEMINI more of a global institution instead of a Duke-based institution, is that we can share these activities with people that want to get more involved with the center, as much as we want to be able to bring the knowledge we've created by creating these processes to build groups at different sites. And at the same time, for the other faculty that are part of the group, as you build your own research line in your own team, also remember that these activities support that growth. So it would be great to integrate the teams better here so that they're all part of this and sharing this unfunded work that feeds our capacity to continue pursuing funded work and building our equity and building our network. Okay, so there's a lot that goes on in the background. If you want to support this work, please reach out to Ashley and she will help you get in touch with each of the staff to build out working streams in all of these areas.
Because it also builds exponentially, right? So
Yeah.
any more support for these administrative components help all of us, and they're all available for our teams to use.
Yeah. Just very briefly, a little bit about escalation, and really, anybody who's not reflected in this hierarchy could kind of think about the same thing. Obviously, with that autonomy that Joao is speaking about, we want people to be able to solve their own problems, so we're always gonna try to solve our own problems with the skills and resources that we have, but when we can't, we're gonna go to the resources that we have. We're gonna go to our Google Drive or other things online. And when we can't, we're gonna escalate appropriately and kind of go forward on the sort of hierarchy of problem solving. I just wanted to note though that keep in mind that when you're facing a challenge that you can't resolve and you escalate to the next level, I don't like to think of that as that's getting it off of your plate. Now it's the person who I escalated it to. I want to think of that, if you think of our challenges as like something we carry. We're carrying it over to the next senior person, and then we're gonna carry it together until we resolve it. That goes back to that sense of ownership that Joao spoke about as well. We share this responsibility together. So even though I can't solve a problem, if I'm going to my senior person, I'm gonna still own that and work with them to solve it. Again, I don't wanna spend too much time here because we're out of time. Oh, I do wanna share some wonderful reflections of the past year and a half now. Because we talk about the numbers, but again, we're kind of all about relationships and experiences. So I have some really great photos. This is from our trip. Catherine and Joao and I went with the director and deputy director of GEMINI, as well as Chancellor Emeritus Jean Washington, to Manaus, and had a really wonderful experience there. You saw that some of the snakebite work, the R21, closed out the last fiscal year. And that is gonna have one of the shortest ever translations from science to policy, I think. And it's been picked up in some press, which is great, about the distribution of anti-venom access. We have had some really wonderful time with our team. This is our Tanzanian folks. I think that's Edwin presenting at the SBS meeting, another symposium for another training program. We had somebody publish a whole book. That was actually still just the last fiscal year, so still claim it. Of course, our first cohort of Trek students came last fiscal year, and the second ones have come this year. And that's been really meaningful for the trainees, as we've heard in their own words, but also for all of us that have relationships with them, especially mentors, as we're all reflecting on growth. We had some great social activities, some first conference presentations for a lot of folks, team building, as it were. We ought to schedule another time to go on top of the Duke Tower, which is pictured there, and just spend time together and appreciate each other as like whole human beings, which exists outside of Trek Hall. It's been a great time, like seeing people mentor each other, develop new connections. This was a great photo that has Ellie and Dr. Gerardo presenting at Venom Week, which was hosted in Durham for the first time, which is great because our people are crazy about that conference. So it was really a wonderful year. We're growing our social presence on YouTube in particular. We've had really great visiting scholars and just a really wonderful year. So I wanted to thank each and every one of you for being a part of that. We couldn't do it without the contributions of people at all levels. So I know some of us tend to have moments where we think, you know, we're a small part, or, what do I have to contribute? But as you all said, we know that everybody here has skills, experience, some characteristics that give value to the whole, as well as your learning and getting value from the group. We recognize that each of us has something to contribute. So thank you for making your contributions with us. Final thoughts from Captain Bridgewell? This did take a while, but I think that's important. Does anybody want to share any comments or questions? Charla put in the chat. It seems like a good time to share. I have a NICU fellow, Dr. Merhawit, I'm probably saying that wrong, sorry, from Ethiopia, joining me at Duke. Starting the last week of January, I'll bring her to Gemini meetings. Excited for people to meet her. Awesome. Yes, please.
Okay, well, share comments if you don't want to mention them now individually, that's all fine. And remember that we're still making changes and putting things in place. So there's more movement that will happen as we put some of these ideas to practice. Feedback is always welcome and always needed. Make sure that we're going on the right direction, on the right path.
Last call. All right, as you all said, we welcome feedback. I'm gonna stop the recording.